Kayley, did you know that stolen recordings from popular artists that have never been officially released can sell for upwards of $20,000?
Oh my gosh, I did not. However, I do believe that they call those grails, and I feel like one of Taylor Swift's might fetch a little more than $20K, but I also think the cyber criminals know better.
Well, Taylor Swift did announce her track list for her new album, and it's like months before it's going to start coming out. And I just had to think right now there's a whole bunch of criminals, right, who are going after the grail of one of those unreleased but recorded Taylor Swift things. I mean, you're right. That would be a record.
Yeah,
probably out
absolutely.
There. Well, it looks like in early January, U.S. authorities arrested a 19-year-old Florida man. So this is a classic Florida man story, but with a cybersecurity twist. The authorities were charging him with wire fraud, aggravated identity theft, and conspiring with others. And the overall scheme that's alleged is it was SIM swapping to steal cryptocurrency. But there's a lot more to it than that, right, Kelly?
Yes, that's right. He stole at least $800K from at least 5 people in the stealing of crypto. However, the more interesting bit, in my opinion, is that there was this gang, it sounds like, of these people who were specifically trading in stolen, unreleased rap recordings from popular artists.
So the allegations are that he was a key suspect in, I guess, these hacker groups, Octopus with a K, and Scattered Spider. And it's a great Florida man story because it's not just allegations of online damage, but also real stuff that apparently happened out in the world. Again, all allegations at this point, but Krebs on Security had reported it and put a little more detail on it. The nickname was, it's Noah Michael Urban. He's from Palm Coast, Florida, is the accused. And his nickname was Sosa or King Bob, alleged to have been a core member of the hacking group behind the 2022 breach at Twilio. The allegation, I guess, is that Octopus also leveraged, like they do one breach and they allegedly then they'd take the information from that breach and they'd perpetrate another. So it was fairly well thought out, like breaking into one building, grabbing a key, using that key to then open up another building on another piece of property. So pretty well kind of thought through. But yeah, the rap music aspect of the alleged wrongdoing seems to be the biggest part of it. He was obsessed with these grails. Is that it? Yes,
grails. And yeah, as you said earlier, it's not unusual for a prized grail to fetch $5,000 to up to $20,000. I'm curious though how those two things became connected. Like if they were playing off of one another, or if they were two separate things entirely.
I guess the idea is if you develop the skills to get in somewhere you're not supposed to be, they want to do something once you're there. In the old days, it was, breaking into an abandoned building and graffitiing it, right? So there was something to do. So here, I think the allegations are that, they'd break in and then they'd break into, fine, you'd steal cryptocurrency, but also they'd break in to do this equivalent of graffiti, right? They'd go and take something that wasn't supposed to be theirs. Bring it to the market or just enjoy it or use it like a bounty, essentially.
Yeah. I mean, I imagine that's probably how they got paid more often than not. At least the bigger amounts is blackmail.
Yeah. One of these stories too, I mean, it's not just online. So I think a lot of folks, we've reported on this before on the show, they think of cybersecurity crimes as being all done in a digital way. And they don't necessarily think that because these are crimes, these are criminals who may not obey all the other laws that we have. And so Krebs had a piece on, about a year ago, someone named Foreshadow, right? That was like the alias. There was a Florida teenager who was working for one of these alleged SIM swapping crews or teams. He was abducted, beaten, and held for a $200,000 ransom, right? apparently a new and rival SIM swapping group took credit for this. They claimed that Foreshadow had robbed them and of their fair share of profits from a group job. So, I mean, this is modern crime, but still using in-person, kidnapping, robbery, extortion techniques. So it's not safe or victimless, these crimes. They're serious, and the bad actors are bad actors up and down the line, I think.
Yeah, I agree. It's as you say, the perfect example of how this crosses over into real life, because apparently this is part of the SIM swapping network. It's common for them to ask to accept jobs in person.
That's the IRL, the in real life moniker, right? If you see them. So I think law enforcement who might be on those same channels must love seeing something like that because they know they have an IRL chance of arresting people as a result of these things. So
I see what you did there.
In the bad community will continue using easy and straightforward monikers to know where the bad guys are. So yeah. I like this. And I think we're going to do, Kayley, we're going to keep doing what our producer Rex says we should do, which is bad guys are not hackers. Bad guys are cyber criminals or criminals.
That's right.
Hackers are good guys. Hackers are, at minimum, they're neutral. And at best, they're really, really helpful.
Absolutely.
To everybody. After a short break, we will chat with Joanna Parker Martin. Joanna is a security analyst at Rice University who spends a lot of time protecting researchers, grant data, and students on the campus and beyond. She also studies and thinks deeply about issues related to artificial intelligence. In her free time, she leads the Cybersecurity Book Club for WiCys Global. We're really looking forward to talking to Joanna today.
Welcome to No Password Required, a monthly conversation that introduces you to some of the top talent in the world of cybersecurity.
Well, welcome back. Our guest today is Joanna Parker Martin. Joanna, welcome to the No Password Required podcast.
Hello. Good to be here.
Joanna, could you start by just describing what your current role is at Rice University?
Yeah, absolutely. So I work as a security analyst in the governance, risk, and compliance space. It involves assessing security controls of cloud service vendors, and this can be anything from Zoom to Google Drive. I also focus on data loss prevention, protecting university data. I recently actually made a slight pivot about 6 months ago into this space after working 4 years as security operations, right, doing mostly incident response and things of that nature. So that's where I'm at right now.
Does that include both like work for students and also on the research and faculty side, like the whole protection?
Yeah. I mean, when we say data loss prevention, we mean all Rice data. So that applies to student data that's for the purposes of school, obviously not their personal data, but doing that and protecting faculty, protecting research. That's a really big thing, especially in the compliance space, because there's not just a lot of intellectual property, but you have to protect, some of the spirit of what's expected from DoD grants and, things that are funded by outside sources. Obviously. They expect a certain level of security needs to be there.
And then, so how did you land here? Like, what led up to this current role?
Well, several things. The whole long saga is kind of interesting, but I would say, honestly, when it comes to cybersecurity, the big start for me was the 2016 election. Okay. I don't know if y'all remember the Russians were hacking the DNC and the RNC in an attempt to influence our elections. And so they were releasing strategic data publicly that was stolen to try and influence the way the election went. And that was when I really realized how important this is to me as a citizen, right? I thought, well, this is the potential implications for democracy are huge. So when a position opened up under the CISO, I thought, well, I can learn about cybersecurity. I care about protecting my university. I care about protecting my community and ultimately my country. So I'm basically a blue teamer at heart. That's kind of how I got into this space.
Oh, that's cool. So tell me a little bit about the rest of that journey, though. Where did you start from? Where you ended up here? How did that go?
Well, okay. So when I was younger, I was kind of a mess. I didn't have the opportunity to go to college right out of high school. I didn't have that sort of setup. So I just kind of was working and casting around for crazy different jobs. I worked, as a maid. I worked in food service, a telemarketer, like you name it. I was doing whatever I could to survive. And at some point, I happened upon a job at a hair salon. That it was a great fit. I loved working there. I worked there for years, and I started out as a receptionist. By the time I left, I was running the place in the owner's absence, and I just loved it. I didn't actually even ever really want to leave, but at some point, you have a family. You can't survive on $12 an hour or whatever I was making at the time, and I said I need a longer term strategy. And so this woman came in, she was getting her hair done, and she commented to the hairdresser, "She's great. You must love her." Because I was just I was on that day, I guess. And the hairdresser, LB, she said, "Well, we're really sad because she's looking for a job somewhere else. She's leaving us." And the woman said, "I want to hire her on the spot." She went up to the counter, she paid her bill, and she gave me her card. And she was the head of the facilities department at Rice University.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And she was like, "Now, I don't make all the hiring decisions. You still have to run the gauntlet, but I think you should apply. Go. We have positions open right now that you would be great for. Go apply." So I did. And I got the job. So
that's awesome.
I've been at Rice for 17 years. So but in so many different roles, right? I'm all over the map, right? A lot of my background, especially in school, is accounting and project management. But it was a really interesting journey. And I went to, I was doing accounting work for the accountant of the IT department. And there was a big restructure, reorg and stuff. And I don't think they needed me as much in that role. And that's when that CISO opportunity opened up. And I said, wow, I'd love to be an executive assistant to the CISO. That would be great. And went for that role. Got it, excelled, loved it. And then I would say a couple of years, I was doing that for a couple of years. And then at some point, Mark is his name. He said to me, I'm thinking of starting an apprenticeship program because I'm having trouble hiring security analysts.
Yeah.
And he said, I might want your help kind of, coming up with that and that plan and everything. And I said, well, actually, I'm kind of interested. At that point, I had learned all kinds of cybersecurity stuff. And I loved the field. I loved learning everything I could about it. And he said, oh, okay, well, you can, I guess when I open that up, you can apply, but I'm opening it up to all of IT. So you're going to be competing with these highly technical people. And I said, well, I better step up my games, right? So that's when I dropped some money on some SANS courses. I was very privileged at the time to have had a windfall and able to pay for them, which today I don't think could happen. They're so expensive now. But yeah, I took some SANS courses, did my 300 level, did my 400 level, and was sailing through it. Just loved all of the material, loved it, was learning Python. And then when I applied for the apprenticeship, I got it. It was about 9 months later. Yeah.
That's awesome.
I feel like your route into cybersecurity is kind of unique. I don't know how many professionals can say they started at a hair salon.
It's a little weird.
I love it though. What did you learn while you were working there that ended up helping you when you switched to cybersecurity?
At the hair salon, you think?
Yeah.
So probably how to deal with people, how to deal sensitively with people. A little bit of that I got from my parents in general, but honestly, I think that's the big thing was just being present and fully present in front of people and respecting their time and their, what they're dealing with and trying to manage what you're doing around that. It's really, I believe IT and cybersecurity in general, it's really, we're all revolving around people. That's what we're doing. We're not just, showing up and typing on a keyboard, most of the time. It's all about the people. We're securing people and their data. So, yeah.
What, you've had the ability to, and the guts to change your career path and pivot pretty hard. What is it about you? What characteristics of you allow you to do that, do you think?
So, it goes back, I think, to my parents, right? My mother, she taught me a whole lot about how to not put up with nonsense and how to not let people stop you. Her work ethic is incredible. I absolutely get my work ethic from her. She's an amazing woman, and she is an amazing woman. And, I think that helps a lot also with my dad. I learned a lot of unconditional compassion, just unending, unconditional compassion. So it's really important, especially in cybersecurity, to be compassionate with your end users, with people who don't want to have anything to do with technology, or people who just think they don't need it. I don't need cybersecurity. Why are you bothering me? Like those people are out there, and you have to sort of validate their feelings while also trying to convince them why they should care. It's a big challenge for sure.
I think one of the cool things about cybersecurity is that it's not uncommon for people to not have a formal degree. And I'm curious how, in your case, that absence of a formal degree might have influenced your perspective on yourself and others.
It definitely did influence my perspective. For a long time, I think I thought that I was less than, and that I don't have the piece of paper, so I must not have a lot of value here. And that sort of, it feeds into a lot of imposter syndrome, which is why I think so many people in our industry have that, is a lot of them don't have formal education. But there are things that one doesn't typically learn at a university or college, things like work ethics, certain types of soft skills, how to behave and navigate workplace colleagues, bosses, politics, right? Office politics is a huge thing. You're not going to find a lot about that at your university or your college. And so, that's the other thing, work ethics and are sort of, it's not that you don't have a work ethic to get a degree, but a lot of it revolves around very clear, specific things and deadlines. So what you have to do and when is clearly constantly communicated to you. And in most industries, that is not necessarily the case. You've got to come up with your own deadlines. You've got to realistically evaluate your workload. You have to figure out how to get things from others so that you can accomplish your goals. It's not straightforward, not always, right? And I would say, having a chunk of your workforce with those skills is incredibly important. I mean, it definitely applies to cybersecurity.
Joanna, we know that you spend a lot of time looking at artificial intelligence and AI, sort of not to the extent you have spare time, but some of your spare time on this. How did that become a focus for you?
My new role in compliance, honestly. A lot of what I do, again, is reviewing security controls for cloud applications, right? And lately, we've had a lot of requests to evaluate new AI tools, and the frameworks for evaluating risk of AI is all very new. I want to be able to sort of foresee the road ahead and bring the most value to my job that I can, really.
That makes sense. Given your experience assessing risk, particularly in cybersecurity, and this new passion that you've found learning about AI, how do you see the intersection of those two fields evolving in the coming years? Like, what sorts of challenges do you anticipate?
Yeah, it's going to be, I think, difficult to, as I was saying, sort of assess the risk of using these kinds of tools, mostly because we don't know what we don't know. The technology is so new and it's being adopted so fast by everyone, right? Data sets are incredibly important. So how are you training your data sets? Bias and inaccuracies are a problem, right? The AI industry itself refers to hallucinations. Well, this is my hot take, right? That's just a fancy word for lies. It lies, right? Sometimes ChatGPT, Bard, Copilot, they make things up. And it's not like Google, where you get to select your source, you get to decide what you're going to click on, and then determine whether you trust the veracity of what it's doing. Evaluating risk, that kind of risk, is complicated. The EU, for example, they have some great, interesting strategies. I recently read a white paper that suggested that the way to assess AI risk is using climate change models as your examples, because they are equally complex, right? When you have so many different levels and layers of things that are happening, so it's going to be interesting to see how this space opens up and assessing risk becomes more standardized and adopted all over the world, really. I just find it so interesting. I could babble about it.
Joanna, are you an optimist on it? Are you a pessimist on it? Do you think it's going to help us? Or is it like it could be used either way?
I'm probably not going to make you happy with this answer, but I'm a realist on it. Okay. I'm very practical. I think that AI is inevitable. Okay. It's straight up inevitable. I don't think it's bad or good. I think people need to understand the way that it works. That people confuse. This is really important when we're talking about AI, right? People confuse the AI technologies with like their laptop, right? Your laptop, you plug it in, it just works, right? It doesn't have biases. It doesn't have, it's not going to lie to you. Either you can do something or you can't, right? Either it has power going to it or it doesn't, right? And so people think of technology this way. And the average person who doesn't work in this space or interact with it a whole lot thinks that, AI is just it's going to work like my laptop. They're not going to appreciate that the way this technology operates is it's totally defined by the data sets that it's trained on. And if the data sets that it's trained on are accumulated and the content is created by human beings, which are inherently flawed and are full of biases and inaccuracies and you constantly have to make judgments. So how those data sets are being trained is incredibly important.
Are there any hotspots? I mean, you think about there's a lot of consumer-facing retail companies online that are putting chatbots up left and right. So that's like one area where people are now seeing it when they used to not see it, almost on a daily basis if they're active and if they're buying things or interacting with service providers on the internet. So chatbots is one, and I'm sure the researchers are using it to go against data sets. Are there any areas that you think are of particular risk that people should kind of maybe slow down on?
Absolutely. I think law enforcement.
Okay.
Law enforcement is really where we need to slow down. Recently, I think since 2018, I want to say about 6 Black men and 1 woman were arrested based on inaccurate facial recognition that just straight up identified them. And I think it's telling that they were all Black. Yeah. I think it says a lot about the biases inherent in facial recognition. So just in general, law enforcement, I mean, that has the opportunity to just destroy lives. Like if you want to use it as a data point, that's one thing. But if you're using it to decide whether or not to arrest someone, it's not reliable enough. I think we should slow down.
It's true. Like if the experimentation happens, it should happen in low stakes places. It should happen in entertainment, right? Yeah. It should happen conversations you have among families and friends, right? Like social interactions, but not things that decide freedom or incarceration. Frankly, I mean the stakes are pretty darn high.
I agree. It's dangerous. And I think a lot of the legislation and the regulation that we need in this space is not going to show up until a lot more harm has been done. It's unfortunate, but I think it's probably accurate. I mean, I want you to think about the car. When the car was first made, like there were no seat belts and there were no street lights. And people were just driving these things 30 miles an hour down dirt roads, dodging horses, right? So you got to think about like how slow it can take a while, right? And the only reason we have things like traffic lights and what have you is because we've hit horses, people have died, it causes accidents, that's just sometimes how the nature of these things go.
There was a documentary maybe 20, 25 years ago. It was called Fast, Cheap, and Out of Control. And it followed a couple of technology pieces. And I just love that name for it because I think about that's what is so strange about AI is it's not just, like 5 research universities or companies that have these things secreted somewhere. We can all get access to it, or at least some version of it.
Right.
It just seems it's so inexpensive and accessible immediately by everyone that, of course, there's going to be horrible mistakes that are going to come out of the use of it, but probably some good stuff too. The idea of automating repetitive tasks, I think, is one of those benign uses. That's nice, right?
It is great. Yeah. I mean, it would be really, really nice to be able to just, there's a video game that my husband plays where he's got some, tractor and he can set a path for it. He can do it once. He hits record, he does it once, and then he can hop off and it just keeps going on that loop. And I'm like, this is the future of AI. We're just we're going to do something and go, okay, now do that a lot. Do that so that I can go do something else. I think that's absolutely the future of AI.
I'm still waiting for robot butlers though and robot chefs.
Me too.
I know why this is where it is, but I want that. I want hover bikes and things like that too. So I hope everyone who's working all this stuff.
Oh yeah, sorry. But one interesting thing I think I saw was that somebody was talking about the fact that people are really, really scared about the future and, robots are going to take over and kill us. But none of them care at all about the fact that they've got a robot vacuum mapping out their living room.
Exactly.
That's just they don't think of that, right? Because it's like, the personal surveillance device that they all have on us, right? Our phones that we carry around with them. I don't want anyone to know where I am as I enable notifications on every app and as I enable, location services at every moment of every day. Not me, right? It's like nobody likes Congress, but everyone likes their congressperson.
Totally.
We can all be wrong, right?
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit too about WiCys and about your connection to WiCys?
I could talk about WiCys all day. So WiCys is Women in Cybersecurity. There's a global organization as well as underneath that a lot of local affiliates. So I volunteer with the global organization right now. I lead a book club. Frequently, I'm about to pass it off to others to allow other people the space to do this too. But because it's a global organization, we do this book club over Zoom. So it's not exactly your typical book club, but we review books about cybersecurity and privacy.
Oh, cool!
And it's fantastic. It's great fun. So I do that. Also, at the same time, I'm learning so much because I'm reading all these books about it. But my local chapter, I'm on the leadership team. I'm managing all kinds of things like big events. And I've got an amazing team that I work with, just incredible, brilliant women. And we've launched something called the Cyber Speaker Series. So we have at our local libraries, we have people come and one of our members, gets to do a talk, and it benefits our members because they get to sort of try out stuff they might want to do at a conference in front of their peers. Right. And then also the people attending can just, and we mostly aim it at our members, but it's open to the public too. So anyone can come and show up and go, I want to learn about the research that you're doing in AI or whatever, the research that you're doing in hacking something like LLMs or something. It's fascinating stuff. And so I'm loving being a part of all of this. We're also doing Girl Scouts outreach to help Girl Scouts get cybersecurity badges. I bet you didn't know that was a thing. There are now cybersecurity badges for the Girl Scouts. So that's been great. We've been partnering with them.
I say, Joanna, I have 2 daughters, and one of them has done that program, and it is awesome. And thank you. So I do want to say that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So
cool.
there's a lot. There's a lot that we do. We even do more. We've done some outreach with underprivileged schools to, let people who, like, normally in your average, high school or middle school, you might not think about cybersecurity as a career because there's not any curriculum. It's not a class, right? Not yet. Let's hope. but yeah, so we just kind of bring them in. We go, hey, here's cybersecurity as an industry. Here's what it might look like to get a job in this. So would you be interested? You could hack banks for money for weekly, and they love it. They eat it up.
When you're doing these events in community outreach, how have you, what sorts of attitudes have you encountered from people outside of cybersecurity? I mean, I guess I'm thinking of those memes that have the 6 different panels, like what I think I do, what my mom thinks I do, what the rest of the world thinks I do. Yeah. So just curious, do they think that people in cyber are like hoodied hackers in dark rooms? Or
there is a lot of stereotyping initially, I think, that people do, and I think that's because of the media. I think iStock photos has done the most damage to the industry because you look at the eyes. Every article about a cybersecurity breach has some shadowy figure. It's almost always a dude wearing a hoodie in front of a computer. It's like dark, and or there's like red filters or whatever, and it's like they just give the wrong impression, right? I have a friend from Houston. She's in the Houston WiCys chapter, and she used to wear a shirt that said, "This is what a hacker looks like." She's a Black woman wearing this T-shirt, and cool. She said she used to get all kinds of people would be like, "Oh," and you could just see it on their faces, then being like, "Oh, this is interesting. Let me start a conversation about this," right? And what? So it's not some teenager in their basement. This is we're an army, and there are good ones and bad ones and people who kind of try to walk the line. It's different. We've got red teamers and blue teamers, and so a lot of people walk in with this sort of these stereotypes and these assumptions that either you're an IT person or you're a hacker and you're a bad guy. There's too much nuance that is hard to communicate. Yeah.
We're going to take a short break now. When we return, we'll have our lifestyle polygraph. So please stay with us.
You're listening to the No Password Required podcast. We cover cybersecurity and a lot of other stuff.
Welcome back. As many of you know, the Lifestyle Polygraph is a test used by the federal government to determine if a person is worthy of learning some of our nation's most important secrets. Here, we use this technique for slightly lower stakes to determine whether our guest can join our fantasy cybersecurity squad. Joanna, are you ready for the Lifestyle Polygraph?
I am.
Awesome. All right, first question. In your upbringing, what traits did you pick up from your parents that show up most often in your cybersecurity life? You did kind of answer it.
I did, as I mentioned earlier, right? My mom, work ethic, not putting up with anything from anyone, just really not letting people stop you. And then from my dad, just unconditional compassion. Yeah.
Joanna, how do you feel like when you see in the work environment, when you know if they put a little more work in, they could get better results, but they don't do it? How do you react to that?
You want the honest answer? I'm disappointed. I wish there was more, but I try to recognize that you can't control other people, and it takes all types to make the world go round. So I just try to hang on to that and try to stay positive around it.
I remember years ago, one of my sisters had a job at a catering facility, and she was an athlete and would run basically the whole time. She'd bring things in and out. And there was a woman who was older who worked with her who really couldn't move that fast and move very slowly. And my sister was complaining one night about this. And finally, my dad said to her, he said, it takes all kinds. It takes all kinds, right? You couldn't be recognized for being fast if there weren't people who were a little slower than you.
It's true. And Yeah. And also when you just think about it, like, okay, so maybe I bring a little bit more heavy-handed work into something, and maybe I bring more attention to detail. But honestly, we also need the people who can look at the bigger picture. We need the people who have better work-life balance. Probably. We can't all be workaholics. It just wouldn't work that way.
Yeah, it's like there's no benefit in working in an empty office if everyone's there, right? If I'm here late, right, I want it to be empty so I get some cool feeling about being here alone, you know?
Totally.
Like you're on a secret mission.
That's exactly right. Oh, all these other people at home with their families, and I'm working. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
All right. Question 2. Okay. Can you tell us what it's like to manage and host a poetry open mic event?
Yes. It is not unlike cybersecurity, actually. You'd be surprised. You have folks who are good at certain things and people who are good at others. Some are published, some are just starting out, some are novices, but you have to validate everyone regardless of where they are on the journey. And so you can't be judgmental. You really have to allow space for people to be creative and express themselves. Yeah.
That's lovely. Have you ever combined those two things, poetry and cybersecurity?
I have. I wrote a short poem about cybersecurity. And it's, I'm not going to say it's great, but it's, it was cute. It's sort of I just was feeling like everything I was doing in my job was sparking this sort of introspection about it. And I can read it if you want to hear it.
Yeah,
I would
absolutely.
love to hear it, yeah.
All right, let me pull it up. Okay. Where poetry meets cybersecurity. This very on the nose. Is this poem worth more than the hardware it was typed on? Is this poem a beta version of a future poem? Is this poem Wi-Fi enabled? Hey, cybersecurity, why is it so hard for you to make friends? Will you always be ignored by people that hate technology? Does this poem get a unique MAC address? Does it have capital letters and at least 12 special characters? Will it rely on a password manager to keep all the details straight? Is this a poem that can execute lateral movement into your brain and exfiltrate your creativity? Cybersecurity wears your positive language. All you want to do is throw your arms around people and protect them. Cybersecurity, we have a communication problem. Does this poem make you care? Is privacy worth the trouble? How can we help you, cybersecurity? It's becoming important. We need to know.
That is so good.
Oh, thank you.
That is awesome.
This little goofy thing I came up with.
No, but it points out so many cool things, but it points out the idea of the word cybersecurity, wrapping the arms around it. The word is security. It's in there. It's like a hug.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a hug.
That's a beautiful image, and I'm going to think about that. That's an arresting image, Joanna.
Good.
Yeah.
That's why we do this stuff, right?
It's arms. I love it.
Yeah. I love that. Okay. Third question.
Mm-hmm.
What is a song that will make you dance every time you hear it?
Oh, that's Can't Stop the Feeling from the movie Trolls. There's just something about it. It's just so can't help it. Can't stop the feeling. It's too happy.
That's a great, it has it kicks in, right? Got that sunshine in it has a nice kick in moment to it.
In my pocket. Yeah. And that's it. And it's in my head now. And so I'm already dancing. I can't not dance to it on screen,
That's also a very appropriately named thing. Can't stop it.
Yeah.
Joanna, can you, when you're working on a project, into the flow, really working on it, can you have music in the background or do you need to be isolated? How do you work?
So, yeah, that goes to my neurospiciness. I work better when I have something in the background, but there can't be words. There can't be any lyrics. It's got to be, I'll listen to, things like EDM or what's really fun is scores to movies. So there's nothing that makes you feel like you are a more important person on the planet that what you're doing is saving the world is when you're listening to the soundtrack to like Conan or something, like Conan the Barbarian, or like you're listening to like the epic score from, you know, some latest blockbuster, like,
Yes.
you know, I can't even think of something right off the top of my head. Maybe Saving Private Ryan. That's a good soundtrack, right? So you do that and you're like writing an email and you're like, I'm awesome. This is great. You know, it's seriously, if you haven't tried it, I highly recommend it.
I was at an event on Saturday, and there was like a two-person. Someone was playing the violin, and someone was playing the guitar, and they were singing, and they were like doing contemporary music. And then out of nowhere, they started to play a song from the Game of Thrones soundtrack, and everyone stopped and like looked back, and you know, kind of got a nod from the. You know, the violinist, like, yeah, this has this effect on people. And everybody sat up a little straighter and squared their shoulders.
That's incredible.
It had exactly the effect, Joanna, that you're talking about on a whole, you know, party full of people. It was awesome.
Yeah. It's definitely effective. I agree.
I love it. I'm going to have to try out the Conan soundtrack.
Oh, yeah,
That just sounds so epic.
Basil Polidorus is the composer, and it's one of my favorites. It's just a piece of brilliance. I don't know if he got an Oscar for it. I hope he did because it was really good.
That's cool.
Love that. Okay, last question. Oh no, I'm wrong. You have two more questions.
Ooh, okay.
Penultimate question. You are a big fan of independent movies, so I've heard. In your words, the weirder, the better. Mm-hmm. Can you recommend a couple of your favorites?
Absolutely, I can. There's a movie called The Pillow Book by Peter Greenaway. It's straight up just a stunning film. It's like if you like poetry and just beautiful cinematography, you should see this film. It's not for everyone though. Definitely not a mainstream kind of film. Okay. There's some stuff in there that your average mainstream Hollywood moviegoer is going to be like, whoa, what's happening, right? One of the things, like I think there's some male full frontal nudity in it. So just for your audience, like know what you're getting into. But I think most poets appreciate that and they don't care. But if you want something a little safer, I would recommend Safety Not Guaranteed. It's fantastic. It's unique and unexpected. The main character reminds me of some cybersecurity people I know. little bit paranoid, but not without reason. Totally, you know. Yeah. So.
I'm also a big fan of weird movies, so.
Okay, well, check those out. You'll love them.
So, Joanna, how do you find new stuff to watch?
Various sources. I spend way too much on streaming services because I'll get impatient with them. I'll just be like, this is same old stuff, annoying. So find me something new and interesting and different. So I will often, I'll look up lists. I look up a lot of lists. So, you know, just doing searches on, you know, certain kinds of genres are really helpful.
Cool.
I have a friend who gave me a good tip for picking movies. If you've got like a couple or a list and you just can't pick, they have an app. I think it's just called Spin the Wheel. And you can just add titles or restaurants or whatever and just spin it and it'll spin that wheel and pick one for you.
I love it. It'll pick it for you when you're feeling indecisive. That's great.
Exactly.
I'll check that out. That's cool.
Yeah. All right. Now we have the final question.
Okay.
You have a passion for fresh, ripe strawberries. Here in Central Florida, we have a passion for strawberry shortcakes. And in the shortcake world, there are two types of people, sponge cake supporters and sweet biscuit lovers. Which team are you on?
Okay, I am a proper Southern woman. I'm not a savage. So it's sponge cake all the way for me. It's like sponge cake all the way. I just can't. Biscuits. Biscuits are for gravy. That's brittle. Strawberries belong with sponge cake. Stay in your lane.
What about strawberry jam?
Strawberry jam can go on a biscuit. Yes, I will allow it. Like it's my decision, of course.
There's been a ton of strawberries recently in Central Florida, like in the stores and everything. And my family's been getting them, and the kids in the house just eat the top layer. And I don't know how this has happened. So what I do is I take the bottom layer into work with me, and I've been having them every day. But the bottom layer, I didn't realize this. The top layer of like a pint of strawberries stays dry and is nice, and the bottom layer kind of gets a little soggy. Mm-hmm. And I never realized that before. And so I'm eating basically secondhand strawberries now every day at work at the house.
Which secondhand strawberries.
They're still delicious.
They're still yummy, but yeah, they don't have a good shelf life. The ones at the bottom are the ones that go first. You know,
yeah, you got it. So I should put them in a bowl, flip them or something.
Or yeah, I mean, sometimes the computer itself, you can just flip it over, like walk by your fridge, flip it over.
That's the solution. Yeah, there should be no winners and losers in the house when it comes to strawberries. We should all do fine on it. All right. Well, Kayley, did Joanna make it onto our cybersecurity team?
Absolutely. Flying colors. I mean,
yay.
Yeah, especially once I heard the poem. Like, absolutely.
Jive street cred now. All right.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. Well, Joanna, thank you so much for joining us. If our listeners want to connect with you, how can they do that? Social media, anything like that?
I would say LinkedIn. Hit me up on LinkedIn. You can see all of what we're working on with women in cybersecurity and all of our charity work and all of that stuff. And that's LinkedIn/IN/Joanna PM.
Thank you very much, Joanna.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Well, that brings us to the end of the show. But first, Kayley, what did you learn today?
I learned that I need to start volunteering for my local WiCys chapter. I loved all the things that Joanna talked about doing out in the community, so I'd love to get involved in my own local chapter. And
I'm always looking for sort of new ways to describe the things that we do every day, Kayley. And so I love this idea of cybersecurity as not being something we should be afraid of, or, you know, the kind of thing where it has a connotation of crime or some illicit activity or a burden. Cybersecurity is a hug. Cybersecurity is protecting us and keeping us safe from the bad things that are out there. It's not the bad thing. It's the thing that's keeping us safe from the bad thing. Mm-hmm. So for the entire No Password Required team, I'm Jack Clabby. Thank you all for listening, and we'll talk again soon.
Thank you for listening to the No Password Required podcast. You can find us on social media at No Password Pod. Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe to the No Password Required podcast. And if you know someone who might like it, please share it with them. The show is produced by Cyber Florida, and a special thank you goes out to our friends at Carlton Fields. If you'd like to learn more, visit our website, cyberflorida.org/pod. All opinions expressed by the No Password Required podcast participants are their own and do not exclusively represent the views and opinions of Cyber Florida.